Today on the Soul Inspiring Business Podcast, we're welcoming someone who truly embodies what it means to both build a thriving business and a meaningful life. Garrett Maroon has sold more than 650 homes in 11 years, all by referral. He's the founder of The Faithful Agent, host of the Faithful Agent podcast, and the author of a powerful new book, The Balanced Breakthrough: Winning at Work Without Losing at Life. He's also a husband and a dad to 5, and someone who is truly committed to helping entrepreneurs redefine success in a way that honors their faith, their families, and the work they're called to do in the world. This conversation is packed with wisdom for anyone craving more clarity, more peace, and more alignment. And it all starts now. I'm Kara, and welcome to Soul Inspiring Business. I believe that all of us possess unique gifts and talents that allow us to serve the world and our own growth in the highest possible way. Our lives are an expression of our thoughts, beliefs, and actions. And here, we will explore businesses, thought leaders, and topics designed to inspire, helping propel your own growth so you can live your best and most purposeful life. Welcome to Soul Inspiring Business. Welcome back to the Soul Inspiring Business Podcast. I'm so thrilled to have my friend Garrett Maroon on the podcast today. So welcome, Garrett.
What's up, Kara? I am so excited to be back. It was fun pre-show, so I'm excited for us to get into our conversation today.
Oh, absolutely. Well, we were just talking. It's been a few years since you were on the show, and we're thrilled to have you back. And this time, actually talking about the launch of your new book, which is very timely. And for all of our listeners that have been hearing me, talk about this idea of more flow in your business and less hustle, then this book is kind of perfect for that. So the title, The Balanced Breakthrough: Winning at Work Without Losing at Life. So we're thrilled to get into it today. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me back.
Yeah. So interestingly, I think we tend to teach and write from those things that we've learned, sometimes the hard way. So I'd love for you to share, what was maybe the breakdown to get to the breakthrough, or what really prompted you to speak about this?
Yeah. So a great question. I mean, so I've got 5 kids, right? 8, 6, 4, 2, and 4 months. And, but 3, right. Yeah, exactly.
The 4-month-old threw me. I forgot.
Yeah.
The 4-month-old.
There's another one. Yeah, we probably are done. We'll find out, I guess. But,
That's amazing,
the greatest thing ever. And, kids change your expectation of, like, I used to, before we had kids, like, I don't care, I'll work as many hours as I need. I want to build something big now and whatever. And then you have kids and it's like, I want to be home, right? I don't want to miss out. For me, at least, like, these are the most crucial years. I don't want to miss out on their little years when they're 18 and gone, or even when they're older and they drive and they have, their own lives and whatever. Like, that's fine. I'll have maybe a little bit more free time. But I just started to get to this point, Garrett, where my business was growing, but I got to a point where I couldn't figure out how to just keep growing and building more profit, right? Which is the goal of the business, without working more hours. Like, I couldn't figure that out. And so I'm sitting there outside one day. We had 3 kids at the time. This is 2021. And just doing some thinking time, some journaling. And I had figured out this way, right? I'd written out all these ideas on, how I'm going to double my profits next year. The team wasn't big. It was me and 7 other people. And I could double my profits, but I couldn't solve, how do I do that without working an extra 20 hours a week? So it was going to get me to like 50 to 60 hours a week. And I remember in that moment, this clarity, right, which is the Lord and his kindness, but this clarity of, hey, 5 years from now, if you could look back on the man right here, would you be most proud of the man who doubled his profits and worked 60 hours a week? Or would you be more proud of the man who figured out actually how to work less hours and earn the same amount so you could be more present with your kids? And that answer was so obvious, right? And then I came up to I'm looking at it, and I came up to my office, my whiteboard in my office, and I was, kicking around the idea, like, why did I even have as big of a business as I did? I didn't even know, right? And I feel like a lot of us run into, I don't understand why I had done what I had done. And the only thing on my whiteboard was, how many homes had we sold, right? I'm an agent like you. How many homes had we sold? what was our sales volume and how much profit. That was it. So I was only measuring exactly what the real estate industry had told me to measure, exactly what the real estate industry said, this is what determines whether you're successful or not. And that moment hit me. I was like, I don't want to define success that way. I'm going to define it on my own terms. And that was the kickstart to this whole idea of, hold on, we're all following this definition of success that someone else gave us. We've got to redefine winning on our own and then be in pursuit of that. And it just set me on that journey. And then I realized, talking more about it, teaching more about it, I'm not the only one. In fact, all of us are pretty much dealing with the same thing and the same struggle. And so it just calls me to say, I need to write this. I need to put it out and see if it's going to help. And, anyways, you're an author too, like interesting experience, totally unlike anything I've ever done. And I am truly hopeful that this really starts to restore the families of the entrepreneur who feels like they have to sacrifice family to succeed. It's not true. And we get to decide what winning is going to look like, and we can be in pursuit of that. So that's really kind of the heart behind why I wrote it.
I love that idea that you're defining your own success, because as you said, I think there is a certainly natural drive in real estate for like bigger, more, right? But it's also, pervasive in our culture. I know I, as a type A person, have a lot of that hustle. Where did that hustle drive, if you can look back in your own life, come from? Was it you?
Yeah.
Was it from your parents, your upbringing? Like, how did you get that hustle?
Yeah.
In
So
you?
again, a great question. I don't know, because I wasn't that way. It wasn't that I wouldn't work hard sometimes, right? I coasted my way through college. I got through because I had natural charisma and I could speak. And so they just assumed I knew more than I did. You and I were talking about how you wrote your chapter right in your book. My senior seminar, the penultimate of my graduation, I wrote it the day before, right? It was like the entire semester. I get up there, Kara, I give my speech, and the professor say, okay, well, I was a communications major. What communication theories did you use for your report? And I said, none. And they said, you didn't use any? I said, I don't know any. They're like, you're a senior graduate? You don't know? I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't know any. And I got a C+ and I graduated. Right?
Oh my goodness.
So I don't know that, I think in a lot of ways it was a hindrance, because I just kind of was able to get through. Well, when I came into real estate, it was because my wife thought that I'd be good at it. And so I jumped in, didn't sell anything for 5.5 months. And I think that experience, if I could, pinpoint anything, the experience of saying, Garrett, you're getting outworked and you're getting outthought, right? They're thinking at a higher level. They're working at a higher level. If this is going to work, every other job I had, I could have not that it's okay, but I could have a bad day. And guess what? I made the same amount of money. And so I had never experienced, hey, this is ultimately you versus you, right? Can you get better? Can you grow? And if you can, imagine what can come and the ripple effects of that. And so I didn't know I was an entrepreneur until I'd been doing it for 1.5 years, right? I was like, I'm here, I got to make this work. And then I realized, whoa, I love this. So I don't know where it came from. I mean, I always kind of wanted to be good at things that I cared about. This one was, my wife was working. 2016, quick story. 2016, I started on another team. I left and started my own, hired my first full-time assistant, hired my first agent. And my wife's father-in-law in April 2016, or my father-in-law went had an immediate or emergency triple bypass surgery in April. So the month after I started the business, she had to quit her job. He ended up in the hospital for 2.5 years before he passed. So she quits her job. And so her salary of 45 grand goes away overnight. I immediately have $40,000 more of expenses that I'd never expected, right? So I had this $80,000 swing overnight. That moment of that fire underneath me to say, your back's against the wall, I think that's maybe where the ambition came out of, you now have to do this. Your wife is gone. She's taking care of her father. You have no other income. It's on you. I really think that's kind of where it forced me to say, all right, I got to find this somewhere. And I did.
Yeah. Well, and I think that you're right too. It's in especially real estate, but any entrepreneurial, business owner feels that pressure of, well, you're only good as what you what you did last, right? Like
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
last sale or your last. So there is a constant, I think, probably more so of that hustle mentality,
Mm,
right? Because you're always pushing for better, for more
yeah.
naturally when it's all up to you, when
Mm,
you've
yeah.
chosen a profession where it's all up to you,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And so then it's like, well, but gosh, there's so much more to life than just,
Mm,
to your point, to just business. There's all these other facets that are part of us and that are integrated into the whole. We're
mm.
only focusing though on this one part of the wheel.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
You're right.
so inevitably, or as sometimes the analogy goes, like if you have a stool and you've got a three-legged stool but you're only
Mm,
focused on one leg,
mm.
right? Then like that's not going to sustain itself. It's not going to
Yeah.
hold the weight.
Yeah.
So
That's absolutely right.
um, so when you talk about then redefining what success looks like for you, where do you start for somebody that's listening and saying, well, gosh, that kind of sounds like me. Where do I get started? Is there
Yeah.
a process or something that you take somebody through?
Yeah, for sure. And it goes, certainly more in depth in the book than we can here. But, I'll first say, I love hustle in a box,
Mm,
right? You should hustle in the hours that you've allowed yourself to hustle. That's excellent.
mm,
It's that we don't shut it off or give it guardrails, right? And so because of that, we are at dinner and we're still on the phone and we're like, oh, sorry, I'll be right there. And you're supposed to be on date night. That's not okay. And so when we think about this, the scoreboard is what I call it now, right? I don't want somebody else to tell me how to keep score. How do you know if you're winning a football game? Well, you look at the score. And so how do I know if I'm winning? Well, I always start with try to, depending on how long you've been in business, right? But try to think back the very beginning. Why did you get into the business? And I can guarantee you, we didn't get in to work 80 hours a week and be stressed out and sitting at the beach with our laptop and pretending like we should be proud of working on vacation while our kids play and miss us.
mm,
That's not why you got in. You got in because, yeah, you wanted more money freedom. You wanted more time freedom. You wanted whatever, location freedom. You wanted all of these things. I ran into, I was teaching this and maybe 2 years ago before I'd written the book. And a mom after this at this event, and a mom comes up to me. She introduced herself, Garrett. I'm a solo real estate agent and a mom. And she said, I sold 55 houses last year, my best year ever. Great year, right? For anybody not in real estate, that's a phenomenal year.
yeah, that
And she
really is.
said, yeah, she said, everyone's asking me, what am I going to do this year? And I just keep telling them 60 or 70 because we're supposed to grow, right? That's literally what she's saying.
Hmm.
And she said, Garrett, but I'm going to sell 30 homes this year and it's going to change my life. And I was like, well, tell me why. And she said, I got into real estate because I wanted to pick up my daughter from school. Guess what? I've never done because I've been so busy selling homes. Right. And it's like this moment of this woman who is crushing it, but realizing I didn't get in here to just make a bajillion dollars. I got into this because I wanted to pick up my daughter. So how do I design a business around that? Right.
Mhm.
So I think if we start with what was the intention of why we got in? So for me, right, for example, yeah, I make way more money than I was making in higher education, right? Praise God. I don't think I'd be able to have a family on higher education, income. Um, but I don't need to keep making more. Yes, I'd love to in the confines of the box, right, of the hustle, but I don't need to keep going. I don't need to do more. My family's taken care of. I got in, right? So we'd be able to afford having kids and my wife could homeschool. I got in so we could take every seventh week off and go travel as a family. I got in so I could take day dates with my wife twice a month during, right? I said day dates, right? During the day, right? And it would be okay. That's why I got in. And
Mhm.
so I needed to reset. How am I keeping score? So for me, it's right there. Now I have a profit goal. So my scoreboard has 3 things on it. I think they can have up to 5. I would focus on 3, right? Because it's hard to achieve all these things, but my scoreboard has a profit goal. But then the second one is 2 day dates a month. The third one is take every 7th week off to be with my family. And so it's a wife goal and a family goal. Now, I fully know that just taking every 7th week off doesn't mean I'm a good dad, right? But I need to measure something. I need to track something. And so now I have a new, better way to keep score. I have a new, better way to make decisions
Mhm.
instead of just, well, sorry, honey, I need to go make more money because this opportunity exists. It's, excuse me, any opportunity that comes. Is it going to help me hit my profit goal? Sure. Is it going to, can I still take my wife on a date? Absolutely. is it fall on the 7th week off? I'm sorry, I can't do it. I had a really amazing speaking opportunity, right? And I was so excited. When did it fall? A 7th week off. Man, thank you for inviting me. Please invite me next time. I can't come. Right? There's a new way to keep score. And so I think when we start there at the very beginning, that's a famous song, right? I can't sing it right now. I don't even remember what it's from, but it's something. So go find that, right? But
Yeah.
when you start at the beginning and you say, I got in this so my business would support my life. Now my business is the thing in the way of that life. I need to reset. I need to define what winning looks like. And if, the number one salesperson in our market, Kara, 2 years ago, I'm not going to say his name, was widely known that his business actually lost money. He had gotten divorced that year, wasn't talking to his oldest son. And yet what is happening? He's celebrating with everybody. He's taking selfies with everybody. They're cheering for him and saying, way to go. He's excited, but he goes home to an empty house. I don't think that's what we want success to look like.
Yeah.
But yet that's what we're in pursuit of most of the time. So we just need a reset, a pause, and a new way to keep score.
Yeah. I love that. And I think it's so true. So two things kind of come into mind is as you're talking, again, it's really about having that clarity of what you want, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I love that idea of creating the boundaries once you have the clarity of what does success look like for me? What does, because I've definitely felt that in my own, business and life that yes, I can get these big opportunities, but at the end of the day, what am I doing it for? If I'm missing out on being with my kids, on seeing them play soccer, on, all of those things. And so how do you then, it starts with having the clarity of what does that success look like? And then I love how you said very clearly, these are the score. This is how I'm defining it. It's a week off, and that could look different for everybody, depending on what you're, but you've got to kind of make a metric by which to measure it to some degree so that where the boundary lies. Otherwise,
right.
I think saying yes to all the speaking things.
We just ask bad questions, right? So someone recently on a podcast said, again, this was for real estate agents, but they said, talk to the agent who just wants to know, how do I sell 30 homes a year? And I said, that's the easiest question in the world. Go work 120 hours, spend $100,000. You'll find your way to 30 sales, right? You'll make money, or you won't make a profit, right? But you'll find your way there. We need to ask the right question. How do I sell 30 homes and not miss family dinners and never work on a Sunday? Whatever their scenario is. When you define, like you said, these guardrails, when you define it better, now okay, based off of that information, what kind of business do I need to build that's going to do that? That's such a better question. If someone here is saying, how do I make $100,000 or whatever their scenario is, which I totally respect, right? At the beginning, you're just like, I got to see if I can even do this. And so I totally get that heart, right? But if you say, how do I make $100,000? Transparently, that's a relatively easy question to answer. Work yourself to death, you'll find it there. But I think what you mean is, how do I make $100,000? Still show up for the soccer game on Saturday mornings and whatever, turn off my phone at 6 p.m. so I can spend time with my family. Whatever your scenario is, you need to craft and create that and then seek accountability, right? We're terrible at holding ourselves accountable. Seek accountability from your spouse, from a coach, from somebody to say, hold me to this. This is what I'm in pursuit of. And then I found what was amazing when I started to truncate my hours, right? And force myself to not answer the phone past 5, not work on the weekends, all of those things that we're supposed to quote unquote do. I actually started earning more money because I had to say no to all the things that were not necessary to do in the first place. I had to go find help because I'm not going to be working all those hours I was normally working. Well, guess what that help brought? Way more skills, right? That was a terrible sentence. I'm an author, right? That's why we have editors, right, Kara?
Right.
But that brought people with a much higher skill set than me in X, Y, and Z. And so when we force ourselves to say, this is the life I want to build, I think it just causes clarity on the other things. And ultimately, I'll say this, I think the hardest part for all of us, and me too, absolutely, is we have 2 accounts. We have an ego account and we have a family account, right? Depending on your scenarios. For us, right? A family account. We often choose the ego account. If you're hustling and you're like, man, I just need to make more. I want every single month in real estate, every office is like, guess who the number one salesperson was, and number two and number three. So it's like they're trying to make us compare ourselves instead of saying, you know what, this client or this opportunity, whatever it is for our audience, right? To say, is that ego account? Or maybe you say, is that Scoreboard account, right? Is that family account? Which one? Because if you have enough money, I'm not saying don't go pursue, growing and building your business. That's a good thing. But I am saying if you're still working 80 hours a week, when you've already figured out how to provide for your family this year, and now you're just grinding just to grind, maybe you're choosing ego account and maybe you should be choosing family account. And I think we just got to have awareness on those things.
Yeah. Yeah. I think clarity and awareness then is what begins the roadmap, right? It's like the starting point for mapping out then what that looks like. And you did just touch on this, but I want to go a little bit deeper into it because, one of the things that the book is about is, this roadmap to more income, greater impact, lasting joy. But when we think less hustle, we often don't think more income. We think, there's that like paradox. So, can you touch on that, how you'd help somebody reframe that for themselves?
Yeah, for sure. So I do think that's the misnomer, right? When I think of hustle, so let's define it maybe a little bit better. When I think of hustle, I think of we have to do all of these things to generate business, right? Or whatever their individual scenario. So in our world, right, Garrett, you got to cold call, you got to do open houses, you got to door knock, you got to social media, you got to work by referral, you got to do all those things. Well, here's the reality. The hardest part as an entrepreneur is that you wear literally every single hat, right? Until you can find a few people, but you're still wearing a lot of hats. For the small business owner like us, I'm wearing a lot of hats. Well, because of that, I often very quickly lose sight of who I actually am, right? In the way that I'm wired. So let me give an example. So I think in our industry, Albert Einstein said, if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing it's stupid, right? That's a powerful statement. There's a lot of fish that should be swimming, but they're climbing a tree because someone told them to do it. And they're like, whatever, this is what everybody has to do. It's the grind. It's all of this stuff. And you're not good at it and you hate it. And that's not okay, right? What we need to first reset is understand who am I and how am I specifically wired? That's my unique superpower. Every person that is listening has their own unique superpower, right? You write about this, I think, in your book. Has their own unique superpower and understanding of what are they specifically good at. So I'll give you a story that illustrates. My wife's best family friend growing up, Mr. Jenkins, he is 6'10". Okay, he's massive, and I'm 5'6" and 3/4. 3/4 matters when you're my height.
3/4, yeah.
That matters when you're my maybe 5'7",
rounding up to 5'7", right?
Right. Yeah, that's what my license says, but they're lying. So he is 6'10". Okay, he is huge. Well, we go and visit them. This is a couple years ago, and he takes me into his office. He wants to show me his sports memorabilia, and it's awesome. But that's not what I remember. He is so tall. He works at a standing desk. He's so tall. I could walk back and forth under it without ducking. And I'm like, how in the world are we the same species? That doesn't make sense, right? Well, the reason I say that is if I grew up my whole life and everyone was like, you got to be a great basketball player or else you're nothing. You got to be a great basketball player, you're nothing. Well, the probability of me succeeding in the NBA is basically zero, right? I guess there's a teeny tiny percentage. Whereas Mr. Jenkins, if he wanted to, I'm not saying he would because NBA is hard, but what's his probability? Significantly higher. That's who he is. That's how he was created and made. And so we spend too much time sitting there saying, I wish I was just taller. I wish I was this. I wish I was that. I could have done this. You know what? I bet I'm way better at hide and seek than he is, right? Because there's no way they're going to find me versus he can't hide anywhere. And so what is your individual unique gifting? And when we start there and we understand this is who I am, authentically, this is what I'm good at, right? Then we get to focus our energy, our time, our business building on what I'm naturally good at. So if you're naturally good at, let's say, social media, and I'm naturally good at cold calling, which I'm not, but let's say I am. Right? If you try to spend a lot of time on cold calling, no matter how hard you work, if I work as hard, I'll always be better. I'm naturally good at it. I'm going to want to do it and learn more about it more often than you are because you're doing it unwillingly. I'm doing it with excitement versus I try to do social media, same thing. If you're naturally good at it, Go be excellent at it. So I say all of that when we understand who we are and how we're wired. And then we say, okay, let's go build a business like that. It actually allows us to cut out the noise, do, in my opinion, and experienced coaching agents do less work, right? Because now we're really focusing on the best work. And because of that, we actually end up earning more money in less time. It's that we're not wasting our time doing all of these other things. It's that I'm showing up and being excellent at what I'm uniquely good at. And we're all different. Stop trying to be like everybody else. So I think when we work backwards from what is authentically me, right? What am I actually good at? And then we pursue becoming excellent at that one thing. That's how we earn more in less time. And I've seen it happen over and over and over and over and over again. And so I really think that's how we do it. But we got to start with that understanding.
Hey, I absolutely love that, because I think, again, speaking to, and I think you and I both share similar faith, and you're also the host of the Faithful Agent podcast. And so I think it really is about aligning with who God meant you to be in the world, right? And so when we can say, hey, God, who would you want me to be? How can I live out the highest expression, the most full expression of who you designed me to be in this world? Help me live that out in my business. Then, as you mentioned, then you can really, your time flies by. It doesn't feel as hard because you're naturally doing things you're good at. And I believe that also God gives you the opportunities that you can handle more and more of when you're playing that game alongside him, So, and I guess that kind of leads me into my next question, which is, in an increasingly secular world, how have you found your voice to talk about your faith and business, and how does that play into your business?
Yeah. So, it a couple months ago, again, I was going on this podcast, and at the very beginning, but before we recorded, he said, "Hey, I know you host the Faithful Agent. You're a Christian. That's not this kind of show. If you don't mind, just don't talk about any of that." And I said, first of all, I totally respect you, right? This is your show, but it's not a backpack, right? I can't take it on and off. Like, this is actually my identity. This is who I am. I'm a follower of Jesus. I'm a husband. I'm a dad. I'm a business owner. I'm a real estate agent, right? I'm an almost author, right? It wasn't at the time. And so these are things that define who I am. I can't be an agent for you right now, and then a husband later, and then a dad later, and then a follower of Jesus later. It's not a backpack. It's who I am. And so because of that, I can't take it off. If that doesn't work for you, I respect it, man. We don't need to do this interview. That's okay. And he's like, you know what? That's fine. Let's do it. We ended up talking about Jesus, right? So I think again, in that idea of authenticity, and if they don't agree or share the same faith, that's okay, right? I would encourage them anyways. Be authentic to who you are. You're not just a small business owner of whatever, right? You're not just a mom. You're not just a whatever you are. You're also, maybe you follow Jesus. Maybe you believe something totally different. Maybe you are whatever. It doesn't matter, but you're not one thing at different times during the day. You're all of those things all the time. And I think for me, it just got to the point where, number one, I'm not going to deny the Lord in front of man, right? And so whatever, if you don't like it, that's okay. I'm not trying to offend anybody, but I also just wanted to present in a way that was going to encourage others to be authentic. So when we launched, my buddy Tyler and I, when we launched the Faithful Agent, and we said, there's no one right now specifically talking to Christians in the real estate space. I don't know why. Let's do it. Well, transparently, what we didn't realize was, number one, two things. Number one, how many people were waiting for someone to go first? We didn't realize that. It was amazing, the response that came from that. And then number two, we didn't realize how many people would be against us being honest about who we were. And at the end of the day, the constant theme was people coming up and saying, hey, I was always told, don't talk politics, don't talk religion. I'm so glad you guys are saying that's not true. Let's just be honest about who we are. And so I think more than anything, what I don't want to do is live a life and own a business that is totally not fully authentic to who I am. And then at the end of my life, be like, I don't know why I didn't just be honest about who I was. Some people are going to like it. Some people aren't, whatever. That's not my decision. And so I think in an understanding of if I actually believe this, which I totally do, right?
Mhm.
If I actually believe in Christ and I know what the gospel is, and that's changed my life and radicalized my life in a great way, then I'm not going to be shy about that. I can't turn it on and off. It just is who I am. And if that's not okay with you, again, I'm not offended by that. I want you to be honest too. And
Mhm.
then if we can learn to just accept the reality of like, hey, we might disagree, but that's who you are, this is who I am. Great, let's have a conversation about it. It's going to start changing things. It's when people shy away from who they are because
Yeah.
like, they're not going to like it. I need to pretend to be somebody else.
Yeah.
That's when things, not just in business, but in the culture, start going the wrong direction. So I think we as a culture are starving for people to just say, this is who I am.
Mhm.
And yeah, and I think everybody should do that. And I would love to see people to do that. Mask wearing is dangerous. Mask wearing is to our consumer, our clients, all those things. But then I'm afraid that we end up wearing a mask to ourselves and like we've forgotten, I don't even know who I am anymore. Right. And that's a dangerous thing. So, if anything, the easiest thing for me to do every day, Care, is just show up and be me and not try to remember like, wait, who was I supposed to show up as? I'm not that smart to remember. And so let's just show up and be us. Right. And
Yeah.
that's okay if some people don't like it. A lot of people will. And I think you'll find the encouragement of those who say, keep going. Like, thank you for being willing to go first or whatever the scenario is.
Yeah. It's interesting. I have found that too. And, uh, when I first started the podcast, even it was a lot of, that how come we talk about, religion or spirituality or God in this section over here, but we're not
Mm,
allowed to talk about it in our business or
mm,
it's not allowed to be part of the business. And so it was like these two separate worlds.
mm.
But, when again, to your point, if we're all one person, we're an
Yeah.
integrated being. You have
Right.
all these different pieces that are part of you. And I believe that the more we show up authentically and the more that we're really grounded and rooted
Mm,
in who we are,
mm,
uh, then I think it gives other people permission to show up in an authentic way too,
mm,
and to your point, even just launching the podcast and
mm.
giving a voice to many people that were craving or waiting for that,
Yeah.
you know, um, it gives other people permission to show up and to share their faith and to share their ideas, and they don't have to be exactly like yours,
Yeah.
but but you may say something that touches them in some way, and they may say something that touches you in some way, and
Yeah.
that's how dialogue and conversations happen.
Yeah. That's right.
um, and I, again, kind of even taking it back to business, I think that God intended us to use our strengths and our abilities and
Yeah.
all that we are
Totally.
in, to help other people, to make an impact, to serve.
Mm.
And so that's what we're doing in business. That's what
Yeah.
entrepreneurship in
Right.
many ways is about. We've
Absolutely.
we've taken it, or the world has sort of defined it in some ways as like, the hustle, the badge of honor, the more money, the all this.
Mm,
But if we can take that aside and say, well, how do I serve in the biggest possible way? God, give me the tools, God, give me the platform, God, give me
mm.
the strength and the intuition to listen to you and to, show up for those
Mm.
that I'm meant to serve. God, bring me the people that I'm meant to
Yeah.
serve,
Right. Yep.
then I think there's a lot of power in
Mm,
speaking that into being, and
mm.
then just trusting that the opportunities will show up, that you will
Yeah.
then, when you're living in alignment that way, that the opportunities will show up for you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a matter of stewardship,
Yeah.
right? Is this reality of, right, you were created for a reason, and I don't know what that reason, I don't know what's going to happen 5 minutes from now, right? But the Lord does. And so because of that, he wrote a specific story for me. And so it doesn't make sense, not that my characters could do this, but if any character in my book or your book, right, there aren't characters, but
Mhm.
if there were characters in the book and they looked at me like, I don't want to do that. Well, like, well, I wrote this story. What do you mean you're going to do that? You don't have a, like, this is not how this works. I created you for this specific reason. And so therefore I need you to live that out. But in our lives, we most often spend the time saying, I don't want to be that character. Well, it's like, well, you are that character. So now please show me, how do I steward this character well, as
Yeah.
opposed to, again, no, I want to be a basketball player. I want to be 6'10. I want to be 6'10. Why can't I be 6'10? We misunderstand this idea. Think of David and Goliath. David was like a 17-year-old, like my size, like 5'6". Goliath was, they think he was like 9 feet tall, right? Which is insane. And so most of us, honestly, I think we would say, I want to be a great business owner, a great warrior. I want to be like Goliath. I want to be big. We know the story, so we don't. But if we were living in that day, be like, why can't I be big like that? Why can't I do this? Why can't I have a 120-pound spear, right? Which is insane. Why can't I do those things? And then here's this scrawny little dude, and he's like, he's not a mighty warrior. Well, guess what? Yeah, he is, because he was living out his purpose. He killed Goliath. He cut off his head, and he became the greatest king that has ever lived, right? And so when we stop looking around and saying, I should be like that. If I want to be this, then I should have been like that. And I guess I'll never be that person, but I can pretend to be. Instead say, here's this 5, 6, 17-year-old shepherd boy who the Lord gave him a purpose. And because he walked in that purpose, guess what happened? Everything changed, right? I think we need to seek that out, exactly to your point, and say, what specifically am I here to do? I want to try to do that well. And if we walk in that alignment, which we never will perfectly, but if we walk in that alignment, that's where the greatest impact, the greatest opportunity, that's where those things come from. And quite honestly, for me at least, when I start to feel burnout, all I have to do is stop and say, okay, where am I outside the guardrails of what I'm supposed to be doing? Because the Lord doesn't desire me to burn out. That's not something that he gave me, right? It's coming somewhere else. And so how do I get back into alignment with where I'm supposed to be? And maybe that means just keep earning this amount, right? My mentor, last thing, my mentor, who lives in Richmond, Virginia, an amazing man who was an engineer. He's an elder in the church. He's an older man in the church I grew up in. He built a $10 million business, $10 million a year, and sold it for $50 million, which is way better than I've ever done, right? And so, but he was telling me the other day, and he said, man, I always wished my business was bigger. And I'm like, wait, what? You $10 million a year thought like you wished your business was bigger? He's like, yeah, of course I did. But this is the size the Lord wanted to be. And I found contentment in that. And I thought to myself, see, nobody ever gets away from that idea of like, man, I wish this was bigger. I wish this was bigger. I wish this was bigger. Yeah. But we can be in pursuit of, let me be content and just do an excellent job with what I have and be a good steward of that and trust that whatever comes is what's supposed to come. And I'm going to go home and hang out with my family, right? I'm not going to force anything to happen because I can't.
Thanks for sharing that. I think there's power in that, being contented with where you are while also dreaming big. It's a hard paradox to kind of balance. And because there is innately something inside of us that wants to, there's a drive, there's something that's out, and you're balancing that with contentment in the moment while dreaming the big vision, so hard. So it is, a hard balance. And I actually once heard somebody say, if you know your path, it's probably not your path. Right. And so,
that's good.
There's sort of, there's a humility in that, that every day we're showing up and asking for guidance on where we should go, who we should serve, how we should show up. There's and it's a balance between that thing that we may see in front of us. And so I'm curious for you, what are the practices that you use to really listen to that inner guidance or listen to God speaking through you?
Yeah, for sure. So first, I'm terrible at it, right? I mean, I am terrible at it because exactly what you said, there's a natural tension between, as a Christian, between ambition and submission, right, to the Lord and his will. And for anybody, right, ambition and what you're supposed to do or whatever, however that is for the audience. But there's a natural tension there. And, I desire it to be nice and black and white and clean and like, all right, you do ambition here and do submission here. That's not it at all, right? And so I think, again, there's a couple guardrails for me. And I try to break through those guardrails all the time, right? But the first guardrail is, again, when I start to feel burnout, it's this awareness that you go read Psalm 131, right? It's actually David again. He's King Saul is in pursuit of him. He's going to try to kill him. He's living out in a cave. He's terrified, but he says, I do not desire things too great or too marvelous for me, but I've calmed and quieted my soul. And so here's this man who's going to become king, and he's living and he's in a cave getting hunted, but he's like right in exactly where he's supposed to be. So he has calm and peace and the understanding. So when I feel the anxiety and the frustration and all the things that I feel more than I wished I would, right? I had a massive anxiety attack January 2024.
Mm.
And it's what led me to Psalm 131. Like, I'm just desiring all this stuff that's not meant for me. And so how do I let that go? And so the burnout, that anxiety for me is a realization of, hey, you're outside of, we have a dog. He doesn't have an electric fence, right? But if he did, if you go outside the electric fence, you feel the shock. Well, that's kind of what this is, right? It's like, hey, you're a little bit outside the bounds. Maybe you should, come back in. And so that's the first thing. The second thing is I have very, very great friends around me who know me well enough to say, dude, you're being a little too ambitious here. What about this? What about that? Right? What matters? And so that's the second one. The third one, honestly, is simply just prayer. Now, and I love the Lord, but my frustration, I don't know, can I say that? But like my frustration with that is I don't get the answer as fast as I want it to. And so then my ambition takes over and I'm like, all right, I'm just going to start running around then and see what happens. And so it is a constant tension, right? A constant tension that we just live with. And I think we need people around us to be guardrails. I think we need to recognize what's going on in ourselves and say, maybe I'm outside of the bounds of where I'm supposed to be. And then we just need to stop and pray and say, Lord, please just give me wisdom and guidance, right? And I do that occasionally and not enough, Kara, right? Not at all. But I think as we just continue to be in pursuit of that, we are following his path, maybe not in a straight line, because that's definitely not true. But like, we're going to be on that path. And so we just need to ultimately say, okay, you made me ambitious. That's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. I'm going to use that. You've also called me to submit my will and say, what is it that you desire for me? And so how do we do both? I don't know. If someone knows, please message me, because I still haven't figured that out. But we can be in pursuit of that, though, right? We can be in pursuit of trying to understand what that looks like.
Yeah. Well, and I think thanks for sharing your humanness, because at the end of the day, that it is, I think, a battle that many of us, when we look on social media or all these different gurus, I mean, you look out and everybody has an answer for, everything. But, what's really going on behind the scenes, who knows? I think everybody battles this. That's what I've seen in talking to, hundreds of entrepreneurs and business owners. And, it's the same thing. It's this internal battle, right? And sometimes I think, actually this morning, there was this visual picture of this wheel that I was given. And it was like, living, if you look at a wheel and how it's spinning around, if you're on the outer edge of the wheel, then you're going to constantly be like up and down by the confines of what the world is giving, what is happening, the circumstances that are unfolding in that moment. But if we can go to the inner eye of the wheel, then you're centered, you're grounded. And then no matter what is happening around you, you're able to manage it a little bit better, right? So it's sort of that like coming back to, and I think that's where, you talk about prayer or mentors that might give you that groundedness. But when we can come back to our center, it helps us deal with the outer circumstances, the emotional roller coasters, the business, challenges that may come up day to day, right? And that when we have that inner eye, the center of the wheel, then we can then manage the pieces a little bit better.
So good. You better write that book, because that's going to be my second book, called The Inner Eye. I'm like, I have this amazing concept I need to share with you guys. That's really good. I love that. That is so true, though. That's so good. So get on that. That's your next book.
Yeah.
Thank you. There you go. Yeah. And if you don't write it in a year, I'll take it. We'll see how it goes. You can co-author. How about that?
There we go. Awesome. I love it. Well, this has been such a fantastic conversation. I so appreciate you joining us on the show. And for anybody that your book launches, I think you can pre-order it now, but it launches the 25th, correct?
Yeah.
November 25th. So, and it's called The Balanced Breakthrough: Winning at Work Without Losing at Life. And so many golden nuggets. I know you even talk about a formula in there for exactly how to do this and lay it out more step by step. But this, again, this conversation has been fantastic, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me. Absolutely, Kara. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah. And before we leave, is there anything else in terms of how people can find you, learn more about you? Just share with our audience so they can connect with you after the show.
So I'm terribly uninteresting on Instagram, but I am on Instagram. They can find me at Garrett Maroon, and would love to talk to anybody and everybody. Yes, I hope people buy the book. I hope it helps them. But, for me, and I think we share a similarity in this, but a win for me is meeting the child of a real estate agent or an entrepreneur who says, thanks for giving me my mom back.
Mm.
Right. Like that's what I hope this does, is it restores the families of entrepreneurs while we still succeed at a high level. And so I say that to say, if I can help you one-on-one, like, don't hesitate to actually reach out. And if I can help, I'll do whatever I can.
Love that. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
It's always a pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
Loved being here with you today and would love to connect with you more over on Instagram. My handle is linked to the show notes, or you can just type in at Chaffin Donofrio. And I have something special for you as a free gift, my Dynamic Life Journal. This special book has the power to really help you live a soul-inspired life. Go to freegiftfromkara.com. Easy to remember, freegiftfromkara.com. Until next time, beautiful people, sending all my love.